All right, doing a 3, 2.
What are we doing? What are we doing?
No, nothing. Just follow my lead. Just follow my lead, dude.
Wait.
Follow my lead. Just follow my lead,
bro.
All right, 3, 2.
I'm super sweating on the fucking camera, dude.
Come on, man. Come on. No. Just leave it, man. Relax for a second. Let me just take over. That's it. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Welcome to the Brian Allen Podcast Rooftop Conversations. I'm your host, Felix, and today we have a special episode. I want to welcome this guest who's been around for quite a while, who's traveled a bit, made a lot of mistakes, has an interesting story on how he got into the country, and now he's climbed the ranks. So introduced to my guest today, Cabeza. We're just going by his nickname because we don't want him fired or sued, and he's got all these legal reasons behind him. But we'll start with Cabeza. Cabeza, welcome to the show today. Excited to have you.
Glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
So, Cabeza, this is your first time on camera, or have you been on camera before, or for private reasons only?
I've been on camera before. I've done some public events.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So, Cabeza, I think one of the things I brought you on was because you really have an interesting story, I think. And the main point of this show is to highlight people who have interesting stories, people that usually go unlooked or unheard about. And I guess if you can just give us a little intro about, where you grew up and where your family's from and how did you get to here, at least, to Kearney, to New Jersey, wherever you want to call it. Can you give us a little bit of your genesis?
Okay, Genesis. Okay, so how did I get here? Where did I begin? I migrated. I'm just a normal guy, man. It's like,
you're not normal, first of all.
I'm just like every other individual. We moved to United States right before college, right before high school. So I'm originally from Peru.
Okay.
And my parents migrated to the U.S. and we came right before high school. And then that's where the journey begins. I went to Kearney High. I went to free preschools. And then went to university, got me a job, and I'm right here.
Okay. So
it all started in Peru.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about what's your fondest memory of Peru? Obviously, you left there when you were, just a kid still. What's the one thing that you look back nostalgically when you look back at Peru now?
So, a lot of people don't know this, but I've done a little bit of traveling, you're right. And when I was born, my parents actually took me to Venezuela. I lived in Venezuela for a couple of years. And then went back to Peru, and then went back to the U.S., and then eventually moved to the U.K., and then I'm back. So what I remember the most is the first time I went to school in Venezuela, actually.
What was that like?
Oh, my goodness.
For folks that don't know, Venezuela is currently under a dictatorship, crazy elections.
No,
it's like a full
back then.
Right.
It was like an amazing country.
Yeah, back then there was none of that communism yet. It was just literally like a new country, new train station.
It was one of the best Latin American countries. Very wealthy. They've had a metro station, highways, infrastructure, oil. Right, they were selling a lot of oil, so the economy was booming. Everyone was moving to Venezuela. So of course everyone in Peru wanted to go there, and my parents relocated there, and we went. That's where I started kindergarten. I don't remember much. I just remember graduating, kindergarten, and that was a big thing. Doing the school bus. That's
what was the food like from Peru to Venezuela?
Peru is the best food. Yeah.
So what did you eat? Arepas for breakfast? What did you have? Drink, smoothie?
The best thing about comida venezolana son las arepas. Yes, the arepas are great.
Okay.
Fill it with carne mechada. I remember that. And arroz con frijoles. Really good. Avocados.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. But the thing is, up here in this area, like in the metro area, very hard to find good arepas, right? Aren't that many Venezuelan places?
There's more now than before.
Right.
They're growing, but yeah, it's you got they're I recommend them. If you see one, try it, and you'll learn what's good, what's bad.
So you always, I remember growing up because we know each other and we got a shared history. You always mention this story, and I don't know how true it is, and I think I got to bring it up because
Have a story.
because this I grew up for a good whole my life until I started questioning in my late 20s when you told me that the Karate Kid was shot in your backyard, and I don't believe it to this day.
Okay, so we moved to the United States and we lived in Harrison. All right, and my dad always found ways to make it happen. And we were living in a friend's house, a family member. He helped us out. Right, we landed and we just landed into his basement. But we were like a family of 5, so we needed to quickly move out. So my dad found a place in Franklin Avenue. So Google it, Google Maps, 10 Franklin Avenue. And now watch the movie, The Karate Kid. And as soon as it starts, the movie, right? It was filmed in Harrison, right? Ralph Macchio, whatever his name is, he's like saying goodbye, and he's got a station wagon, with a wooden thing on the side.
Yeah.
And yeah, we lived right in that house, So everyone that lived in that block knows that's the street, man. And like every time I watch it here at home, my kids are up to here. Like, yeah, we know that. Actually, fun. I guess story. I live on the street, and the house number is 10.
Mm-hmm.
When I lived in the UK, it was also number 10.
Oh, really?
10's been following me a lot.
Oh, man.
My daughter's birthday is on the 10th. So that number is keeps coming up.
Interesting. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned about how your family got here, and I think we're talking about like immigration, right? Immigrating to the U.S., immigrating to the country. And I think it's an interesting thing because a lot of folks don't know that when immigrants first get to this country, if you're lucky, you don't come here by yourself. You come here with a family, or you have a network of people or family that's already here, or friends that help you kind of navigate your way through into this new country that you have no idea about or speak the language. So I guess tell me a little bit about like what it was like when you got, for example, to that apartment in the U.S. and you're living somewhere. Was it a basement? What was it like? Was it, or were your parents doctors? Were they well off? I didn't give some context so people know.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I'm sure many other Latinos han pasado por lo mismo.
Mm-hmm.
We've experienced the same thing. So there are a few examples that always come to mind, and I like to share with my kids, especially when we first landed in Newark Airport. In Peru, you have the combis and the taxis and like really like antique cars, right?
Right.
Here, like the individual that picked us up had a really nice van with a refrigerator in the back. It had this pimped car. And I remember, wow, one day I'll love to have this car. I'll tell you another story. When we first started going to school in Latin America, there's escuela en la mañana y escuela in the afternoon.
Mm-hmm.
School in the morning, school in the afternoon. Those that work, kids that work, go to school in the afternoon, right? So when I started going to, I think it was 5th grade, my parents never prepped me for the culture shock, And, I started going to school, and I would come back home with my backpack full of books. Those big...
Yeah. Big hardcore cover books, yeah.
Like 4 or 5 books, like always in my backpack. And I'll tell you another story because we would like walk miles and miles, like 4 miles to like, I don't know how many miles, but a lot of miles to school. Anyhow, the point of the story is that the teacher stopped me once, like I think it was like 5 days or 7 days after school started. And I remember the teacher asked the girl that spoke Spanish to translate.
Mm-hmm.
And I suddenly stopping, and the girl goes to me, el profesor quiere saber por qué te está llevando los libros a casa. Why are you taking the books home when you have no homework? And I look at them, I look at both of them, I'm like, because of the afternoon school. And they all looked at me, they're like, There's no afternoon school here. And I was like, oh, and that's just a quick, there's so many small. I'm sure a lot of Latinos, a lot of individuals that have migrated have something like that. But that's something I tell my kids. I was like, yeah, there's a thing in Latin America where there's morning school and afternoon school, and no one taught me. And I was like,
so you were just carrying all these books around, and they're like, "What is he doing? He must be really smart. He's about to skip a grade."
I was just trying to empty the desk. Yeah, that's it.
Oh man.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you. You mentioned that, I think there's a lot of similar stories that when people get to this country that we look back as kids. I think looking back now, all right, like, flash forward 30 years, right? Roughly 30 years or so, 40 years even. Is there anything that you would change about like growing up and enduring? Because I think a lot of people we forget what it is to be a child immigrant, right? We just remember it, but we don't know what they go through.
So I don't have any regrets. I've made errors. I had opportunities where maybe I missed or I failed, but I think that it gave me that experience to, try harder, try again, work harder, and I think it's made me the person that I am. So I made lots of mistakes, but I've learned from them. It's made me a better person. So I want to say that no regrets,
no big regrets,
no regrets, no.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that there's a nice bass guitar right in between us. Could you tell me a little bit about how you got into music? Like you're a young kid, you're just learning the language, right? And all of a sudden, just like music pops into your life, and now it's still in your life. So what was that like? I'm just curious. As a kid, doesn't even speak English yet, fully.
So, oh man,
what's the first album you listened to, or first song that got you?
So I came to the States when it was a heavy metal hair band, the Guns N' Roses, the Poison, and all my buddies were like hippies, long hair individuals, and the influence, right, of the music. I would come home and go to the garage and want to play. So my brother, he's an older guy. He would have a band in Peru, actually. And we never had money for instruments. So he was always a percussionist. And he would do the timbales with los baldes, buckets and things like pots and pans. But he made it happen, right? So I always wanted to be part of a band. Right? I always wanted to play. But everyone wants to be a guitar player, right? And I was left with the bass. I remember when I went to one of the music stores then, he didn't know anything about music. And the guy, I got all intimidated.
Yeah.
The guy goes to me, "What are you looking for?" And I'm like, "A bass guitar." He's like, "What do you want?" And I was like, a black bass. I didn't tell him any type of stuff. He's like, "Okay, I got you." He brought me a black bass. And I remember, I think I told him, "You got anything darker?" And then when we started talking about amps, right? Because there's an electric bass. He goes, what kind of bass amp do you want? And because I'm a 13, 14-year-old kid, I'm like, I want something black. That's all.
Yeah.
Something black. And but that hobby, it took me to meet a lot of friends, experience, and change my personality as well. When I'm home and I want to like vent out of work, I just grab the bass and start playing some different jams. And now the music has changed. It's moved me from metal to punk to rock en español, cumbia, salsa, all these little things, because it's challenging. Right. So it changes the way I play, and it challenges me to learn new things. Yeah.
Would you?
It's a big thing in my.
So could you share any moments where music you think saved you a little bit, or like you just had to lean on it?
Okay, music it saved me a few times. So when I moved to, I think during the mid 2000s, like 2010 or something like that, I got a job offer. And I moved to the UK, and you went to visit me there. I was living a wild life, right? I was by myself, and partying all the time and, carefree,
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to straighten up, clean up, sober up, and I signed up for a marathon. And, marathon takes dedication and training. Remember how
Yeah.
So,
Started running a lot, lost a lot of weight.
yeah, so I started doing half marathons and all these things. But to go back to the music, uh, I would have my playlist. I'd have like so many songs there that really get me going. It went from metal to Peruvian music to different types of genres that like really got me going. So I think music has really helped me a lot. Also, just it helps me with memory as well, right?
Right, because you get attribute music to memories, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess people are going to be asking, like, who's your music influence?
Oh, I got a lot.
Who's your go-to? There's got to be a go-to one.
Right now, what am I listening to?
What's the one beat that just gets you in the good mood?
Actually, I have different genres, right? So
Right.
if you talk punk, I go to the Ramones, right? I love Santana. I am listening to a lot of salsa now, like Oscar de Leon.
Oh wow, it's a throwback.
Yeah, because like he's a bass player, so
Right.
I really appreciated that kind of music when I was in the 80s. But then when I go play with a lot of my buddies, we play Nirvana and all the
Right.
stuff. You got to know that stuff, right?
Right.
So it's like when I play jam with people, like I'm so like all over that it's really easy for me to play. And because the structure of the songs are very similar, it's easy. So yeah.
So it's interesting that you're an immigrant in this country, in the U.S., and then you immigrated again to London. So how was that like? What was that culture shock like? Not only are you the American, but you're like a Peruvian American going into London. What was that like?
So my company gave me the opportunity. So I graduated college, right?
Right.
It took me a long time to graduate because I was working full time. I was working full time, and I was going to school full time at night times during the weekends, and I was a computer scientist. So very hard career for me, choice, especially because no one in my family had a computer, right? I had a computer like the second year or sophomore in college.
In college, yeah.
Yeah. And
You're still learning how to type.
so yeah, the challenge is what I loved, right? So
Right.
I stuck with it, and during the weekends, I was doing some computer work. I suddenly got a gig in the city. Anyhow, the company that I was working for, they knew I was going to school full time still during the nighttime, and they sponsored me a lot. They helped me out. They gave me a special schedule. Long story short is, they relocated me as soon as I graduated from university. They gave me a position in the UK. It was another culture shock there, man.
The food can't be good. The food was not good. Come on. Is it true what they say?
Fish and chips. So I get a full package. The company that I worked for, they gave me all these stickers that said by air or plane, and my job was just to put those little stickers on everything that I had. So I had barely bought me a house, and I put a sticker on by air. My guitars were by air, but everything went by sea. I had barely bought a house, and I remember they had brought this big containers, huge containers, and had it not even a quarter of it filled. So I went to BJ's. I drove to BJ's, and I bought lots of water, lots of toilet paper, and paper towel, big things to fill in the. When I went to the UK, I had my friends there already from work, right?
Right.
And we would have beers and hang out. Anyhow, the container finally came like 3 months later, and I go, "Hey, you guys, you gotta help me empty the container out." And then when I opened it, right, and I was living in a really cool place called Pimlico in the heart of London. I think you went.
Yeah. I visited you. Yeah.
They opened the container, and they were laughing so loud because they saw paper towels, water, and I was like, "Dude, we have that shit." I'm like, anyhow, the culture shock over there made me what I am, man. Because I suddenly got promoted in the UK. I was running this big team, and the way I looked, right?
Yeah.
Latino, right? People would get confused because they're like, "You're Latino, but you don't sound Spaniard."
Right, right.
You're working in the UK, but you sound American. So it was like very, very like hybrid first.
So they were surprised when they saw you in person, or when they talked to you on the phone or something.
And they're running a team.
Yeah.
But that experience or those negatives are the things that would make me stronger, right? So to me, I had already passed that culture shock. New country I already knew, right? And it just made me kind of stronger, and it made me stronger, basically. Yeah.
Can you, if you can, and we get to edit it out if you can't, could you say, and you don't have to go into full detail, but what were some of the challenges you faced, or just one example that you faced without getting too into it, obviously? But I think people could learn from that, how to navigate, being a Latino man in a different country, leading a team, probably just, being the outsider, and how to navigate, I think.
So that's a great question. For those that are watching, and if you're in technology, I recommend it. Continue with it. And the reason why is the following. So in previous companies that I've worked for, as you get promoted, you go to a celebration party, right? You go into the big office and there's other individuals that are getting promoted, right? And I look around and there were only a few females, right? I tell my daughter this, like, you're Latina and you're technology, you should definitely be there because we need more like you. So not even Latinas, just women overall, not many in technology, right? And then my mind is like, I look around again, I'm looking for other people that look like me, right? There might be some Spanish or other individuals, but people that are like a little brown, etc. No, none. So that triggered me that, I need to be paid it forward kind of thing. Let other individuals, give them the opportunity to make sure that they can do this, right? They can go and apply in technology and do all these things. Like, we can do it as well. So that's one of the things that I take as not a negative, but it's something that I want to improve. Yeah.
It's that sense of like mentoring and helping bring up other people that may be facing the same challenge as you, but unlike you didn't have really mentors. You had to navigate it by yourself, right? And I think that's great. I think the fact that when you have that experience and wisdom, you're there now to help somebody else, have a better path and learn from it.
Yeah, I remember the wife came to the door, and I called her from out in, and she's like, "So how was the event?" And I was like, "Really, I wish there would be more women in technology, or I wish there were more Latinos there." So, and it's not against the companies, because I know all these companies are doing this great job in getting more people, but it's us, the parents, that are influencing our kids to do those kind of roles, or particularly in particular areas, because they think technology is just Google or Amazon. Right. But it's everywhere. Everyone needs technology. And I think we just need, us as parents, need to educate our kids that there are opportunities in other sectors.
It sounds also that parents don't even know themselves, right? They don't know this. Like, did your parents know that you were going to go into tech and work in that and be where you're at now?
No,
right?
I myself, I didn't know I was going to go into technology.
So how did you get there? Because what did you want to be in high school when you were a kid? You're like, how did you get there? Where's the connection? Like, because I feel like there's this fake image that people think, I knew what I was going to be since I was eight years old, and I'm there now.
So I think two things. The reason why I went into computer science, one is, when I went to school, the internet was growing, right? The dial-up and
AOL.
Yeah. So of course, it was the boom.
Yeah.
Another reason why I chose computers, and not many people know this, but I was going into Rutgers University, And I think it was already in sophomore year, and I needed to choose a career, a path.
Right.
And I told myself, if I do good in this math class, I don't know if it was calculus 4, 2, 3, one of those.
Mm-hmm.
But I told myself, if I get a B or greater in this, I'm gonna stick to any career that's got to do with math. And I did. I did well in that class. So then I looked at the curriculum, and I had already done a lot of the math classes that were needed for computer science. I just needed to do more of the development work. So that's how I chose. It's really dumb, but that's how I.
No, I mean, it's practical. You're like, I already have these classes already done, And
I hope that people listening, right? Because
yeah,
a lot of kids don't know,
right?
And sometimes the zeros and ones and like the pattern thinking and formulas, I didn't know, but it was what I excel in, or how I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I think, and it'd be important to say that a lot of it is self-learning, right? You just can't go sit in class, take notes, and you're like, okay, I know this. Like how much of it is actually self-learning and practice, like on your own, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or can you just get your A's in college and you're good?
No, I mean, I didn't have individuals teaching me all these. I actually had to go and get tutor. I remember when I was going to my job in the mornings, I would miss some classes. So I would partner up with a friend, and they would give me their notes. We would meet after in the evenings and share the classes. And it's just go around and find ways to go beyond your hurdle, what's in the way,
right,
and make it happen.
And I want to say that, was it a lonely process because you couldn't like just turn to your parents, right? Like your parents are not doctors, they're not like these high level folks, like the working class people, hardworking people, but you couldn't be like, hey dad, can you advise me on this, or can I do that? It was kind of like they gave you maybe some wisdom, or what was that like?
So my parents are very typical Latinos.
Mm-hmm.
I think my dad and my mom, they're great role models though. They've taught us to be loving individuals, first of all. Like none of our siblings, we all get along, man. We are not about conflict and like all this stuff. We're like, straight shooters too.
Right. And that's interesting because, we don't think about it as kids. We're living, we're getting in trouble, we're doing what we got to do, we're learning. But our parents are kind of subtly instilling us this, like, they're immigrants, right? So they're trying to work hard, they're trying to save, they're trying to move up, trying to build a better future. And it's that same principle that you kind of like inherited a little bit, grew up in it. And now that's what you do for work, essentially. You are a person that maximizes efficiency, and being less wasteful, which is almost similar to what like immigrants kind of do, right? Like without all the fancy stuff and everything, it's almost like you've been doing that for a while, but now you kind of found your niche, your spot. And it's interesting because it's almost like full circle. But obviously, you're doing well and you're successful. So I just found that very interesting that things are come full circle. Like, yeah, you may be here and our parents were here at one point, but we're all like on the same level at some.
Yeah. I think when you choose your career, you really want to choose something that you really like, enjoy. Because when I go to work, I don't find it a drag. Yeah, sometimes the drag to get up in the morning, and sometimes I don't get enough sleep. But I'm passionate about it because I really want to discover what's preventing me from a goal or just learning something, right? It's the ambition in me to learn more in that, and I think that comes from the fact that I chose a path that I know I was gonna like. So kids, don't rush in choosing a career. Just make sure you choose take your time.
It sounds like you want to have the things that you like, at least to start off with, right? Otherwise, you're going to be miserable doing something that you don't even enjoy at the core.
It's okay to change careers too.
Yeah.
I mean, I did computer science, but I'm not a developer. But I'm doing something in technology, so not necessarily are you going to do that career, but you'll find your way.
Let me also, for some of those folks out there that We'll talk about two things, just to give you a heads up. We'll talk about Cholo Finances, and I'll tell you what that is. And Cholo Finances, and then we'll talk about StarCraft.
Okay.
So let's start with StarCraft just to break up a little bit, so we don't talk about too much finances and stuff. How'd you get into StarCraft?
Oh, okay. So soccer is a computer game.
Yeah,
It's pretty old now.
yeah. Although people still compete in it in Korea, it's still like a big thing. Yeah, it's like a cult following now. I don't play it, but I remember you got me into it.
So back in college, I worked at the computer lab, and if you share this video with my colleagues from school, my schoolmates, I worked at the computer lab, and then a lot of people had to go to the computer labs to do their work,
Right.
etc. At Rutgers, we own a huge lab.
Right.
The lab had like 100 or 150 computers, and that's where the friends would go, and we would challenge each other to like all these great games. And then this StarCraft game was there, where people would create their own village, their own civilization. You would choose a civilization, right? It was, I think, humans, the Terrans, I think they're called, the aliens,
the Protoss, right? The Protoss,
the Zergs,
yeah.
Protons,
Yeah.
So 3 types of civilizations. I think what would you?
I like the Protoss. I like the the advanced aliens. Yeah.
I always choose a human.
Yeah.
I didn't know what.
You're always a foot soldier. I remember you sent like 100 little foot soldiers out.
So we would play against each other, and that's where it started. But it gets addictive because you become better at
right
and find ways. You create your own maps, and then you start going online, and you see people, and you get points. It's a whole following out there. Yeah.
You dedicated, would you say that was a good portion of like your early 20s? Just like playing a bit, getting into that?
I'm not a big gamer.
Okay.
I don't have, if I have a console, it's because of my kids. But I never, when I first came to the country, I was playing ColecoVision.
Oh. Wait, what's that? For a lot of folks that don't know. The new generation is not going to know what that is.
Before Atari, I believe.
Before Atari.
It was really, okay. So the Pong thing.
Right.
Things. So we got it because it was like the thing.
Right.
But I never really got into it. I think, a little secret, probably the reason why I didn't get it because it was expensive.
Right.
Like the cartridges and all this stuff.
Right.
It was too expensive. And I was like, I know.
And that was like cutting edge technology, right? Back then, it was like the latest thing that was coming out.
So like, I'm going to ask my dad for Santa. We can make a little Santa. So I was never a gamer, but when I was in university, it was a thing, and I just networked with people, and I was like, okay, I'll try it out, and I liked it. So
let's go to Cholo Finances. So I'll tell you what this is. So I'll preface it with, do not take professional advice. Obviously, this is not professional advice. It's just advice and suggestions. Obviously, seek a professional if you really have any serious questions on finances. But the reason why I call it Cholo Finance, and I've actually asked other guests about, any financial advice or decisions or just things that's worked for them, because I think, especially like in the Latino community or immigrant communities, we don't talk about it that much. Like, you look at our parents sometimes, like, they're a little hesitant of big banks, or hesitant of, or they have their own circles of raising money and saving money, like La Juntas and stuff like that, so I think it would just be interesting just to.
La Junta, and a lot of people don't.
So can you elaborate a little bit on it?
Don't you?
So basically, no, I wish I can't commit. If I win the day, I'm gone. So the junta basically is like you have a circle of people. Ideally the more the better, and they're usually trusted people, because and call me out if I miss something. The whole point is basically like you're like assigned a number, right? You get a number, and when it's your number, you basically get the pool of the money for that week. So every week or month, whatever the agreement is, everyone is pooling their money together. And if your number is called on that particular week, you win the whole thing. But you can't just leave. You have to keep pooling for wherever the duration and the amount of the agreed pool is. So I don't know, does that sound complicated or no?
That's right. I think there's a few twists to it, because like you and I, the person running it doesn't need to know this, but you and I can switch numbers, because maybe it's my birthday. And
you need it faster. Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll switch.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's different rules, but yeah, the essence is there. It's just there's no fees. There's no interest rates. Nothing. It's just between family. Everyone puts the same amount of money a particular week, and then everyone gets a lump sum during a given week. During the number that you got.
So would you say how efficient is that now, seeing as, without going into your work, but like you kind of understand efficiencies and how like
efficient is what?
No, it's not like you're investing in the market. There's no like big increase in returns, or even a CD, which is like almost the weekend.
Cholo Finance?
Cholo Finance.
Okay.
Yeah. So what would you say like the efficiency of that is? And I guess just what would you say about it? I'm just curious, as someone now who obviously makes wise decisions, is informed, knows about investments and finances. What could you say to that? And what kind of advice, not saying financial advice, like invest in this, but what advice could you give to somebody, to an up-and-coming family that's like, okay, I've done juntas, I want to save.
I've never done juntas, by the way.
Right.
I know where they are. It's in my parents' house.
Yeah. But what could you say to that person that's not hesitant about big banks or just investing or anything like that? Where did they start? What advice?
You have $100, right?
Uh-huh.
If you have $100, I would say invested in a book, invested in learning something. Right? Go get a certification. Go to a class, learn English, speak English, or take one of those speaking in public kind of thing. Or be part of join a network that would advance your career. So invest in yourself through those things, right? Certifications, academics, school, get a master's, get more, because the more you know, the more you start learning, the more you realize how much you did not know. And till this day, I continue to upskill myself because I know there's so much out there that I don't know. And that's the best advice or investment that you need to do. Invest in yourself by doing that. So you need to understand how it works, and then you can start applying.
Which is good advice. I think that's people skip that. People skip the hard work of like, I need to learn versus no, let me just do, right?
Yeah.
And that's a harder way to learn because you're going to be losing money in the process versus like a low risk approach of I'm investing in myself. No matter the outcome, I'm walking away with something anyway. So let me ask you this before, as we start winding down a bit. You mentioned, and let me know, and you don't have to say it if you don't want to in detail, but I know that I think, we all have journeys, right? And how we get to a certain place. And, and I think you mentioned, I think even I mentioned it, and I can start it by sharing mine. Like I got to this country, with my mom, through my mom. My mom's like a little, 4'10". I was giving her an inch too. 4'10" woman. And, she brought me into this country as like a 9-10-month-old baby, through the frontera. Yeah, through the frontera. So, and I always talk about that because I remember, my dad never really talked about it too much. Never really brought it up that much. My mom would kind of remember a little bit. She'd be like, oh yeah, we did this, we did that. And I was always surprised that, like that I just see when you're growing up, you just see, they're just my parents, they're just working, they're boring. And you don't think that, like our family or parents have had this crazy life to get to where we are today. Where you are now, your parents had to make a journey, or even you yourself made that journey. And, I just remember talking to my mom and my dad, and just my mom particularly just saying how she was able to travel through Mexico and the scary story of, oh, is a kid going to be quiet as they cross the checkpoint, or are they baby going to cry, and yeah.
There's a big piece to your story that you're not telling.
What's that?
So I remember because I was...
And you might know more, honestly, because I only know pieces.
I was like 13, 14 when you were crossing, I think. It was, I want to say, the earthquake of 86.
Oh, right, Mexico, yeah.
Yeah, huge earthquake in Mexico City.
El aspecto que vive la Ciudad de México en este momento es el aspecto de una ciudad traumatizada, de una ciudad que ha sufrido uno de los movimientos telúricos de consecuencias más dramáticas. Estoy enfrente de mi casa de trabajo donde he pasado a lo largo de mi vida más horas que en mi propia casa y está totalmente destruida.
Your mom was there. So I think like your mom called your dad. Your dad was living at my house, I believe, in 10 Franklin Avenue. So what do you call it? You know the old phones.
Yeah.
So they're like, okay, I remember your dad was like, okay, Elena, I'll see you later, right? Okay, hang up, right? We're gonna say an hour later, the news breaks.
Oh, wow.
Dude, your dad went bananas. Oh, dude, mi tío, he was like, we were like, dude, relax, everything's gonna be okay. And he's like, calling, and that shit was not like the phone was not working. And now you're talking about all this shit's like, dude, 3 days, I think 6 days later, fucking phone rings. And it's in then, oh man, you should have seen your dad's face. Oh man. But we had not heard from you guys in days. And everyone was thinking the worst because it's like the worst earthquake that Mexico had in like decades.
Yeah, it was the whole like city was destroyed.
Yeah, and I remember that when you cross the border, like how your dad felt. Us too. I mean, you know, we're cousins, so my mom was like worried about her sister, and I just watching my uncle. I was like, oh man, that's not good. But I'm glad everything worked out, dude.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because like I think one of the main reasons why I want to do this project is because I don't want those stories to go forgotten. You know, like those stories, if we don't tell them or save them in some place or another, I want them to get passed on to our kids so they know this.
So like, you know how I said there's no regrets and like it made me stronger. It's like my parents, you know, moved us here, and unfortunately, we had to go through the border, and there's a million funny examples and sad examples.
How old were you though, so people know? Because I think that's important, right? To know
you know.
Were you a baby like me, 9 months old, or could you understand and see the world?
I was my son's age. I was like,
oh, really?
11. So,
oh wow,
I didn't know what was happening because my parents never told me. They just said I was going to the United States. I remember my birthday was.
Oh, as you were crossing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I thought I was going to the States and it's going to be the next day. But no, it took like 3 weeks, man. We took the bus from Lima, Peru, all the way to Venezuela. A bus, man. Like, so you know how that is, right?
Yeah.
Mountains.
That's even scary as it is, just navigating it.
And then from Venezuela, we went to Mexico, and there's all these like stories that you know it's too long to mention. Everyone has their own stories. I remember when I went to cut my hair, and you know, and the guy, I look like a typical guy. He's like, so I go, so I'm like, tell me your story. His story was even harder than mine. I was like, dude, I thought I had it bad. He was telling me that he crossed the border 3 times, and he's still paying. He spent about $50,000.
Wow.
Crossing the border, because when the second time he passed, el coyote lo dejó, and the individuals in Mexico, los Zetas, or you know the gangs, caught them, and you need a ticket.
Oh wow!
In addition to the payment that you do the coyote, right? So you don't have a ticket, they take you to a place, and he had to ask the parents for money. And then when they send them the money, which they had to get money from a bank, that individual was left in the middle of the desert, and he was telling me that he cried. He never cried because it was cold, it was hot, there were snakes everywhere. He was walking and he saw a girl crying because she was lost.
No,
he was telling me that the police were coming. He picked the girl up and he ran, and he finally found a wagon where there was the coyotes, and he finally got here. It's huge, I think, network of individuals working in this field that it's sad. I mean, people make money in this um I guess business. And he was just telling me the story, like going from even San Diego to, I think he said New York. Every state has like a cell where, like imagine a bus driver, a car driver, where they would just drive all of Texas, and then from Texas they would go. So it's like a whole community, and I'm just like, they didn't even know this. And yeah, it's like everyone has their own stories. I don't know, man. I'll give you a funny one. When my sister and I were coming, my sister, I think, was like 14, 13. She had the Indian hair,
Oh yeah,
and straight hair, beautiful.
yeah.
Hair.
Long jet black hair, right? Yeah,
Very nice, right?
yeah.
I remember my grandma le hacía los moños, like,
Little braids, yeah.
she would put like el limón,
Right.
like hairspray, really nice hairspray, limón. It's like, so she looked great, like really nice, braids and stuff. So luckily, yo te digo, es to your dad, to my tío Pablito, was, ella no va a poder cruzar porque se ve muy india. And my mother like, well, what do you want me to do? Dice, corte el pelo.
Oh my God.
So my uncle, I think he was like in his 30s. He's like, okay. So they cross the street and they take it to, I don't know if they were connected or something.
Right.
I'm sure they did. So they just grabbed my sister's hair. And then the guy, they come back and the girl is like, she looks more American. God, dude, it was like, yeah, my sister. So like, she now she's laughing about it. But I remember she was crying a lot that night. Yeah, a lot of memories, but it makes you strong, dude. And yeah.
I think it's crazy that 11 years old, and it's interesting that your son is currently 11 years old.
They make fun of me. They're like, they literally, because now they understand it. Slowly, I've told them my little story, little by little. I tell them stories, and I think when they first understood it maybe a year ago, they're like, and now they're like thinking, like, just recently they come to me, Daddy, so you're literally undocumented in like all the countries that you crossed.
Oh, they connected the dots, right? Yeah, it's funny. Well, I like to. We always like end. We kind of wind down. Well, before we go into like the last couple questions, real quick fire answer questions. Okay, so I'll ask you some questions, and you already heard these questions before because like they're pretty popular. So don't give it too much thought. Yeah, they're popular questions that have been asked before. So just answer as we go along. But before we get there, is there anything you want to say, anything you want to promote, plug, or just anything or any just thoughts that you want to leave people with before we get into that last segment?
Well, thank you for inviting me, man. It was very comfortable just speaking. I'm going to repeat what I said earlier, which is pay it forward, right? Those that are listening and that have some knowledge, mentor someone, or work with siblings, cousins, or others. I know some individuals. I've tried to help some individuals, and it didn't work out. So I don't. But yeah, or if that's not your thing, I want to say invest in yourself with training and certifications, knowledge, or even physical, like working out, etc. Right? That's it, man.
Yeah. Well, let's get into the final questions then. And you heard this before, so you won't be surprised. If how about this? What's your favorite curse word?
My favorite curse word is...
Don't think about it too much. Don't think...
I go Kikuna.
Okay.
I always say that as my grandma. My grandma always was just like...
It's Quechua.
It's Quechua / Spanish.
Yeah.
I'm just like, because no one knows. I do like that. Yeah. Even my kids say it too.
Oh, really? Nice. Passing the traditional language down. When you die and you go and you're at the pearly gates, what would you like God to tell you or say to you?
Answer.
If there's one thing that you'd like to be remembered for, What would that be?
Musical, like Red Bulls, I don't know, something fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And lastly, what's one advice if this was your last day that you'd give to your kids?
Just be yourself, man. Have fun. Be yourself. Yeah, that's all.
Well, I'm incredibly grateful and thankful, Cabeza. You've been an incredible guest today. And I think a lot of people walk away richer and a lot more knowledgeable in listening to your stories and experiences. Again, thankful so much for Cabeza joining us on the Brown Olive Rooftop Conversations podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram and like us on YouTube. And we'll be having more future episodes.